Why don't we go ahead and talk to Steve in Nebraska? Steve, what you got for us today?
Yeah, yeah. Hi, Christy, yeah, Sophia, and Dr. Ben. So, yeah, I'm calling in this week because yesterday, when my mom was on her last breath, my wife, sister-in-law, and we heard a light tap, a light knock
Mm-hmm.
on her hospice room door, and I was right there next to the door, and without hesitation, I immediately opened the door, and there was nobody there. And I just wanted to know if you guys believe in spirits and what that you guys think that could have been. I couldn't have been imagining it because two other people heard the same thing I did.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a loud knocking noise, so I wouldn't have confused this knock with the knock next door. It wasn't anybody
Sure.
playing tricks because immediately I opened the door without hesitation, and there was nobody in the hall. There was nobody at the door.
Yeah.
So
Well,
how you guys explain that?
sure. I mean, we'll certainly try to talk you through it and see what we can do to help you wrap your head around it. But I really just want to say that spirits or no spirits, knocks or no knocks or whatever else. So sorry to hear that was your day yesterday, that's the experience of mourning and grief that your family is going through. I hope that we can maybe help bring you some comfort by helping you understand that aspect of this experience. But the real lead here seems to be you lost your mother. And I'm sorry to hear that. That being said, what would y'all maybe suggest?
It was expected, so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, she's at peace. She's in a better place. I
hear that.
In a better place, and she's not suffering anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not seeing these tubes in her, and not seeing her in pain.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't fall to us to tell you that couldn't possibly be true, that there's no way that she's in a better place, that there is no better place. I mean, if that is how you feel, if that's what you believe, we absolutely want to respect that. And if you are in this place of believing or assuming that this knocking sound on the door is some meaningful sign of extra dimensions, of spirit worlds, of these other kinds of things, I think we might want to propose some alternate explanations for you to consider and take in. Sophia, let me kind of jump to you. What would you perhaps recommend as a reframing for this idea?
So I think the first thing I want to point out is that we're definitely not here to take away anything from anyone. And I was speaking to my mother about her own father's death, and she knows, my opinions and my views. And she said something about how she just needs to believe that what he spent his whole life devoted to was at least somewhat true. And that's cool. That's fine. I don't think there's anything really wrong with that. It's not the conclusion I land on. So I think, what I think of, if we're getting to the specific event of hearing a knock, I think there's a lot of potential, possibilities of what that could have been. One thing that comes to mind immediately, during the sort of Sherlock Holmes era in Great Britain, there were two sisters who spiritualism was a big deal. People really believed in spirits. Seances were incredibly popular, and they would have experiences that they would say they could not explain. And these two sisters usually communicated with ghosts through knocking, right? And people there genuinely believed, and they looked, tried to find all of these explanations, and there was none that they could find. Eventually, it was shown that they were essentially using their joints, because they had like a funky joint disorder that would make a popping sound. And that was, how they were able to create this whole celebrity around it. So I think it's hard because it can be as simple as maybe it was a rat who scurried away, or maybe it was something moved, and it's harder. Honestly, even at my ripe old age of 34, sometimes sounds don't come from an identifiable direction anymore. Like maybe the sound was misplaced. Like there's just a lot of potentially relatively simple explanations. I don't, if it feels like that matters though, I think there are things in my own life I know I'll say, it's very poetic, or it makes this story that comforts me or that fits for me, and I'm just going to keep it. And I think that that's kind of okay too.
How does that strike you,
Well,
Steve?
I mean, I had that door open as soon as we heard. It wasn't just me. We heard the tap on the door, the knock. It was a light knock. I opened that door right away. There was no animals running down the hallway, no people. It wasn't a prankster. There was nobody there.
Okay.
I thought, and I'm not primed to believe in ghosts and spirits because I've never had a paranormal experience in my life. In my 59 years of life, I've never had this, so I wasn't primed or confirmation bias towards this. And it was just totally unexpected. And it really, it scared the bejesus out of me. It just totally freaked me out. I mean, I had to leave the room and go outside and have a smoke. I was like, whoa.
I mean, it's a moment of really profound emotion. And I think that goes to the narrative piece that Sophia is speaking on, because there's no way for us to sit here and prove what it was or wasn't. We can certainly offer some common conjecture. And if you want to, you can, knock all that down. You can say that there's no way it had anything to do with the heating and air conditioning ducts. You can say it had nothing to do with the possibility of somebody dropping a, creamer packet on the floor. Like any of those things that it could be, perhaps it wasn't, and we will certainly never know. But in that space of big emotion, it's really tempting to say that you do know and that it has to be tied to this or the other thing, when the reality is you probably hear bizarre or unexplained, building creaking, reshuffling sounds all the time, and you don't worry about it and you don't think about it because it's not happening in this moment of like profound meaning.
I think I might also throw in.
Well, that was my, Christy, that was my thought, that it was the fan in the room that had rattled on the door, but it wasn't a rattling noise. It was like a light knock, but it wasn't that loud. It was more like a tap knock.
So it feels,
and we all heard it. Not all. There was 4 people in the room, and 3 of us heard it.
it feels like
My brother
there's
was on the other side of the room.
a focus instead of on the fact that hearing noises we can't fully explain is pretty common, and in times of heightened emotion, we might ascribe meaning to those things. It feels like there's this fixation maybe on specifically what it was. And I'm kind of curious, what would that change for you? Like, why does it matter to find a specific explanation for that knocking sound, which I would see is probably just something that, was happening in the building settling, or like I said, someone's joints creaking or something in a way that we...
I was next to the door. I distinctly heard the sound.
So why...
It wasn't like
what does it change for you?
like what you're saying.
Say we can't explain it.
I don't know. I don't know what to think of it because I've never really believed in spirits.
Right. So I think what Sophia is asking is, why are you making that jump? Like, there was a sound, you don't know what the sound was, and therefore spirits? How do you make that connection?
I don't know, just the timing of it.
Well, and the timing.
Yeah, no, hold on. Definitely aliens. I'm seeing these chat comments. No, come on,
But
guys.
the timing, and you
Okay,
mentioned
yeah,
you
I've called
mentioned the
in
timing,
before
Steve.
with my beliefs, but that's no, come on.
I'm
No,
sorry.
Steve,
I'm sorry
no,
if someone's
I'm not
being rude to
saying
you
that.
in the chat.
Yeah.
I don't see the chat right here, so like we're not looking at it. So I'm sorry if someone's being rude.
But Steve, the timing is an important thing too, because I don't want to discount your experience, and I fully believe that you experienced this phenomenon. You heard something, your family heard something, but it's important to recognize too that in the state that you were in a time of grief, especially at the time when everything was happening, even if you didn't quite recognize it, you probably were in more of a fight or flight state during that. The neurotransmitters going around telling you to be more vigilant of your surroundings, subconsciously you could have heard a noise that was more exaggerated than it normally would have been just because you perceived it differently in that moment. And so
It wasn't even a loud noise, so Dr. Bennett.
no, but
wasn't
that's
even-
the thing.
was like
It may
light
not have
tap.
seen no, but your ability to detect that noise may have been better because you were more able to focus on your surroundings because of your hormonal interactions. And it's something that you're not going to be acutely aware of because your body's doing all this stuff without you really paying attention to it. But in addition to all these other things, like, I do believe that the timing is important to this. I think that the circumstances were important to this. And so we could say, yeah, there are some significant reasons why this may have happened. I again don't know if we can explain these things, but sometimes things that seem more significant maybe are that way because of a small physiologic change that you just maybe weren't aware of.
Yeah,
Well,
Steve,
earlier,
I don't want to.
She was crying out to her mom, and the knock on the door. I don't know. I mean, could that have been linked in some way? That maybe she's with my grandma.
Maybe if that's what, I think I'm kind of curious sort of why you called, because I think that, you heard a soft knock on a door yesterday in a state far away from
I didn't
us.
hear it. It was we. It wasn't just me.
Okay.
I had
plural.
two other people that heard that.
You as a group
sound.
heard
Yeah,
that.
you and others.
There's only so
Right.
much we can give lots of different ideas for what it could have been. There's no way we could prove that. But I'm curious, like, what is it? How do you want us to interact with this? Because I will say for myself, I don't believe that it was necessarily spirits. I think I would have a hard time thinking that. But also, that's my opinion, states away. I'm not involved with you or your mother or grandmother. And
Sophia didn't hear it.
yeah, I didn't hear it. And I'm curious as to, like, I think if I heard this story in just real life, if somebody was telling me the story about their grandmother, I would just, their mother, I would just kind of let it be, because if that's what's giving them comfort or giving them meaning, I'm not going to go out and correct it. So I'm curious what it is you are wanting in this conversation.
I'm just wondering if you guys believe in spiritualism, that there's maybe more to reality than what we can perceive.
Personally, no, but it's not an active unbelief, more than I just have never seen conclusive evidence. And I think knowing myself after I'm, say, watching a horror movie or something, how much it feels like the house is closing in on me after I turn out all the lights. I know we can be put into a state, if it's heightened emotion, of interpreting things in a way that would maybe confirm to us that there's a spirit there without there actually being one. So personally, I would say that I don't have an active belief against it, but I do not believe in a spiritual world, and I think we can be easily tricked. That doesn't necessarily have to have any bearing on how you experience
But it wasn't just
your mother's
me.
passing.
It wasn't just me that heard that. There were two.
We get that,
There were
Steve,
four
and I
people
can
in the room
appreciate
that
why
heard
having
that.
other people in that space might help to affirm your interpretation of events. But what I've heard both Ben and Sophia try to express that I maybe haven't heard you grapple with is that our emotional state changes our perception. And that emotional state is not just you, it's everybody in the room who is going through that experience and the ways that they are co-regulating and bouncing off of each other. I don't want to belabor the point, but if you're interested in maybe sort of proving this to yourself or understanding it better, look up the word neuroception or some of the ideas around Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory, or really any great number of interpersonal neurobiology that will express that the way that we perceive the world, not just the way we think about it or the way that we explain it, but the way we actually experience it, is deeply changed by our emotional experiences. And I do think that even if we set all of that aside, you have not investigated every random noise you've ever heard in your life, but you feel deeply moved to investigate this one. And I have to say, it's because of the large emotions that are attached to it. It makes sense to want to have an explanation. It makes sense in a world full of death and loss to want to have a reason and some amount of hope. And your efforts to make meaning out of this random sound are something I have a deep compassion for. Does that mean that it was ghosts or spirits or anything else? I'm inclined to say probably not, but I appreciate why you would want to go to that space.
Well, I distinctly heard a tap. It wasn't a rattle. It wasn't the fan. I thought it could have been the fan in the room rattling the door.
I believe that you did, and what all three of us are positing is that the phrase "I distinctly heard" is maybe not as reliable as you think. Don't believe everything that you think. I believe that you heard it. Does that mean anything at all other than you had the experiential process of hearing a thing? It doesn't.
Well, I just think there could be more than the naturalistic explanations for everything.
Yeah, there certainly could be. We're not denying that possibility or potentiality. We're just saying that we don't see any reason to go there. So maybe, could be. And if it brings you comfort to hold on to that idea, I'm certainly not going to rip it away from you. The biggest thing I would suggest to you, if you are looking for advice, considering that you called in a show to talk to us, I think I would share with you that this has to be a deeply profound emotional experience. And I might encourage you to focus on that, to focus on the grief, on the relief, on the pain, on the whatever else you might be going through here, and to ask yourself whether these questions of sounds and spirits might be a bit of a distraction from sitting in that distress.
Well, thank you guys giving me some things to think about. So
Sure.
I appreciate it, and I just don't think that maybe everything has a natural.
Yeah, you may well be right.
Be more than what
Oh, Steve.
We're sorry for your loss, and we hope that you take good care. Ben, please.
Oh yeah, but I think too, since it's so, like, all of this is so fresh for you, I wonder if, go think about it a little bit. I mean, process this experience. Like, you've just been through a lot, and take some time, take whatever time you need, and maybe revisit this question again on the show in the future, when maybe you've thought over some different details that maybe you didn't remember. And I guess I'd be happy to revisit it. But I think right now it's especially emotionally charged, and don't deny yourself kind of the space to process that.
Well, thanks for the kind words, Dr. Bannigan. I will. I'll have to reflect on this, and thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for
Take good
calling.
care. And we're sorry again for your loss.